The Bluebird pas de deux from The Sleeping Beauty is one of ballet's most famous and iconic dances. Although most fans are familiar with the segment, the derivation and background of the work are less well known. In this video, I give some historical background for the work and show one of the best Bluebird variations that I have seen, from Paris Opera Ballet's François Alu. His dancing stands out with great clarity and purpose of movement, making it a preeminent example of this work. Background on the Bluebird. French-born choreographer Maurice Petipa choreographed The Sleeping Beauty for the Mariinsky Ballet in St. Petersburg, Russia in 1890. Sources for the ballet are fantasies created by French writers of the late 17th century during the reign of Louis XIV. The best-known author was Charles Perrault, who is often cited as the founder of the modern fairy tale genre. He wrote a version of The Sleeping Beauty, as well as popular stories of Cinderella, Puss in Boots, and Little Red Riding Hood. In the ballet, Princess Aurora celebrates her wedding with party guests, including Perrault's characters listed earlier. Other characters are invited that are less well known to English-speaking audiences, namely Bluebird with Princess Florine and the White Cat who dances with Puss in Boots. Both the Bluebird and the White Cat are stories by Madame d'Aulnoy. The most extravagant French tales during that period were by women who produced work in salons, which were gathering places for dynamic-thinking women prevented by society from having professional careers. In these stories, some of these scheming characters and winding plots may have reflected the intrigues of the day in the French court during the reign of Louis XIV. In the Bluebird, a king marries a wicked woman after his wife dies. The new queen hates Florine, the king's kind-hearted daughter, and promotes her own wicked daughter, Trouton, whose face resembles a trout fish. The queen wishes the young king, Charmant, who loves Florine, to marry Trouton. He is also referred to in some English translations as Prince Charming. Charmant is French for charming. Charmant refuses, and Trouton's wicked fairy godmother turns him into a bluebird. Florine is locked in a tower, where Charmant finds her and visits her nightly. In the end, the people of the kingdom rebel against the queen. Florine is released from the tower, and after terrible hardships, finds her beloved bird. He regains human form, and the fish-faced Trouton becomes a pig. In Bluebird, as in Sleeping Beauty, virtue triumphs. Like Princess Aurora, d'Aulnoy's birds and beasts fall under evil spells, but are ultimately liberated. Everyone lives happily ever after. Back to the ballet. Florine and the Bluebird dance for Aurora's wedding. The famous pas de deux showcases numerous beat steps for the Bluebird as he flutters effortlessly in variations that are repetitive, with a limited number of unique steps, requiring great stamina. One of the best Bluebird variations on YouTube is, fittingly enough, from a Frenchman, François Alu, of the Paris Opera Ballet. Alu joined the Paris Opera Ballet in 2010. At his first promotion competition, he was promoted in 2011 and again in 2013. He was promoted to Premier Danseur in 2014 and Étoile in 2022, the highest ranking for a Paris Opera dancer. Take a look at his 1-minute variation, and I will be back with commentary. There isn't much diversity of steps in the Bluebird variation, and Alu's variation is very standard. After fluttering his arms in the corner like a bird, he does a soubresaut sisson failli assemblé 4 times along the diagonal. A sisson is a jump off of 2 feet, landing on 1 foot. This is a special type of sisson as the dancer bends his back at the top of the jump with feet together to form something looking like a fishtail. The step is also called temps de poisson, or pas de poisson. The failli, meaning to give way, is a fleeting movement done on 1 count. This is done after landing as Alu quickly moves through first position on his way to his assemblé, which is an assembling step off of 1 foot and landing on 2 feet. Alu adds beats to his assemblé, making it more difficult. His left leg is extended, then the right leg goes up to meet the left. Then the legs are switched so that the right leg is in front, and switched again so that the left leg is in front on landing. I prefer calling this an ensemble 6 with 6 crossings of the legs, counting each crossing as 2 movements, 1 by each leg. The nomenclature on the step is confusing, with ballet schools disagreeing on the number of beats. In the French school, it is called entrechat 5 de volley. 5 is French for 5. The Russian Vaganova school term is entrechat 6 de volley, where 6 is French for 6, and the Cecchetti method calls it an entrechat 6 de côté. My advice, call it an ensemble 6. Many dancers do a simple ensemble step, shown here by Artemy Belyakov of the Bolshoi Ballet. I prefer the variation with beats, as done by Alu. After repeating 4 times, he does 2 entrechat 6. This is a beating step, taking off on 2 feet with a landing on 2 feet. His first 6 is done with feet in 5th position, left foot in front. He changes his feet 3 times in the air, landing with his right foot in front, with nice separation on his beats. He repeats the step and then pops into a double tour, 2 turns in the air from 5th position. He does a jeté entrelacé to get to the corner for a diagonal from the other side, repeating the step 4 times. Impressive is the distance he travels along the diagonal, covering great ground on his ciseaux and ensemble. Not covering a lot of ground makes the dancer look timid, where bold movements are called for. The variation is very taxing, requiring substantial stamina. Alu does a total of 32 jumps in 45 seconds, most with beats, which requires additional exertion. I danced the role many years ago and remember my legs feeling like jello, running out of gas at this point with a number of jumps left. I just sucked it up and kept smiling. Alu repeats the segment with 2 entrechat 6 to a double tour, this time to the right. He then does 2 jeté entrelacés, which is somewhat of a rest segment, before proceeding to the last part. He finishes with 6 entrechat 6 to a nicely controlled double tour to the knee, to the back. The last entrechat 6s are very difficult because of fatigue after all of the preceding jumps. Alu does a nice job of articulating his beats in a side-to-side motion. The tendency among less proficient dancers is to do the beats in an unattractive front-to-back movement, particularly when tired, which makes audience members ask, "What was that?" Well done by Alu. Fellow Paris Opera dancer Mathias Heymann also does a great Bluebird variation with the same steps, and I will leave a link in the video description so you can compare. Take a look at Alu's coda, and I will be back with commentary. The main step of the coda consists of a diagonal brise-volley. It's hard to appreciate the mechanics in real time, so here's a slow motion clip. Alu brushes his left leg, beats his right leg in back, then in front, finishing the first segment with his right leg front near high ankle in a momentary sur le coup de pied position. For the volley segment, he brushes his right leg, beats with his left leg in front, finishing by landing on his right leg with left sur le coup de pied in derrière. This is basically a jeté with beats, known as a jeté battu, done 2 times. He then repeats the segment 11 times. Note his relaxed upper body that moves side to side on the brise and volley segments in sync with his arms. It is important to maintain flowing arms throughout, as the character is a Bluebird after all. At the end, most do a simple changement, or leaps changing feet in 5th position. Alu, along with Heymann, do a more difficult entrechat 6 2 times to a beautiful 6 pirouettes, very controlled. What makes Alu's variation stand out is his great clarity and precision of movement. His beats are precise and crisp, with substantial articulation. He travels a substantial distance, showing great gusto and confidence with light, airy arms, evocative of a bird in flight. His tours and pirouettes are on the mark, particularly at the end of his variations, with a controlled double tour to the knee and smooth pirouettes to finish the coda. Let me know your thoughts and favorite dancer in the Bluebird variation. Thanks for tuning in.